So before we get into all of the microphone samples, I do want to point out that I am not an audio engineer, and I don't even consider myself an audiophile. Basically, what I aim for is audio that is good enough. And what I define as good enough, an audio engineer or an audiophile, it is definitely not going to meet their standards. I consider myself a video production enthusiast, not an expert. So with that being said, now we're going to move into the audio samples, and you can decide for yourself what you think of all of these different microphones. Before we get started with the microphone samples, I would like to point out this room where each recording has been made is extremely budget tight, with no soundproof panels whatsoever. And with all of that being said, let's begin. So to knock one sample out very quickly, the microphone that I've been using thus far is a Samson Q2U. So this is a sample recording of the Samson Q2U being recorded with the USB output of the Samson mic. I am recording this sample in Audacity on a Windows 10 PC. I would like to note that the Samson Q2U has an XLR output, which should give a better quality recording. However, I do not own an audio interface, so I have no way of providing an XLR sample. Next on my list is the Pyle PDMIK1. This is a sample recording of the Pyle PDMIK1. I am using an XLR to USB adapter to record this sample on my PC. I would like to note that the XLR cables do not fit very well into this microphone, which can cause some problems, as you will hear in the following recording. This is a sample recording of the Tonor TC-777 being recorded over USB. I am recording this sample in Audacity on a Windows 10 PC. If you want to know more about this microphone, I did a full review of this mic, and you can watch that video right here. And this is a sample recording of the Comica CVM-VM10II. What a mouthful. This sample is being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. I am approximately 18 inches away from the microphone. And this is a sample recording of the generic non-branded lavalier microphone being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. This lavalier mic is clipped directly to my t-shirt collar just below my neck. And this is a sample recording of the Boya By-M1 lavalier microphone being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. I have this lavalier mic clipped directly on my t-shirt collar just below my neck. And this is a sample recording of the Audio-Technica Atr 3350 being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. This lavalier mic is clipped directly onto my t-shirt collar just below my throat. And this is a sample recording of the Boya Vm-01 mini shotgun mic being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. I am approximately 18 inches away from the microphone. And this is a sample recording of the Mickey Mouse microphone being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. I am approximately 18 inches away from the microphone. And this is a sample recording of the Takstar SGC-598 shotgun mic being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. I am approximately 18 inches away from the microphone. So as I mentioned before, audio that meets a professional audio engineer's standards and my standards are going to be completely two different things. And what I consider good audio, passable audio, is audio that is basically clear, easy to hear, easy to understand, and that's what I aim for in my audio. So the nice thing about that is that I'm doing technical tutorials and things like that. So basically, I just aim for audio that you can hear and understand what I'm saying. And the good thing about that is that you can edit the audio in most video editing or audio editing software to make it good enough, even if it is sort of a cheap crappy mic. And I'm going to go through a quick tutorial of how I do it. And this is a pretty simple tutorial to follow that really anybody can follow along with, and anybody can make this work because it's a really simple process. And though, like I said, it may not fit a pro's standard for audio editing, it's good enough to reach a YouTube audience, especially if you're doing something like what I'm doing here, where you're just doing some voiceover work for a tutorial. Okay, so the best thing that you can do is actually have a better mic so that you don't have to do so much cleanup in post. But if you can't afford anything beyond a cheap mic and you are stuck working with that, there is a little bit of hope and you can clean that up in post somewhat. It is always better to have the better mic, but all is not lost. I've taken this clip that I recorded with the $2 lavalier mic earlier, and this is a sample recording of the generic non-branded lavalier microphone being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. To me, this thing sounds a little bit muffled and a little bit nasally. And the way I'm going to fix that, well, first of all, I'm going to normalize the audio level. And I want to copy this file so that I can compare the two later and see the differences that I've applied in post-production here. And the quick and dirty way that I've found for cleaning up audio that is either too muffly or too tinny is the parametric equalizer. So we're going to apply a parametric equalizer to this clip. And then I'm going to go through and turn off the low band, the number 1 band, the number 3 band, the number 5 band, and the high band. And we're just going to work with 2 and 4. So if it's too muffly, you're going to want to take the numbers that are to the left down and the numbers that are to the right up. So since we're only working with 2 and 4 and we want this thing to not sound so muffly, we want to take 2 down and 4 up. This is a sample recording of the generic non-branded lavalier microphone being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. This lavalier mic is clipped to my ear, and this is a sample recording of the generic non-branded lavalier microphone being recorded directly. And when we get to a point that we're happy with that, or even if we're too limited with those 2 numbers, we can turn on more bands and add them into the mix as needed. So what I'm going to do here is turn on the 1 band and add a little bit more bass. And this is a sample recording of the generic non-branded lavalier microphone being recorded directly into the microphone input. And I'm just going to continue moving these around, re-listening to this over and over again until it gets to the point where I'm happy with it. After doing a bit of tweaking, this is what I finally settled on. I'll let you take a listen, and you can hear for yourself if you believe it's any better or not. And this is a sample recording of the generic non-branded, lavalier microphone being recorded directly into the microphone input jack of my Panasonic Lumix G7. This lavalier mic is clipped directly to my t-shirt collar just below my neck. I'm going to go crazy here and make a really bold statement, but I think for a $2 mic, that sounded pretty good. Keep in mind that time goes into that, and you're always going to be better off having the equipment that cuts out the editing middleman. But if you're on a very tight budget, that will get the job done. If you're working with audio files that have the opposite problem of being too muffled and they're too tinny, you would do the opposite of what I did in that. You would take the 2 band up and the 4 band down as your starting point and work from there. So I'm going to wrap this video up here with a shout out to my patrons. If you would like to support this channel on Patreon and now Ko-Fi, there will be links in the description below. Donations are appreciated, but never expected. As always, the best way you can support this channel is to like, comment, share, and subscribe. That's it for now, and I'll see you next time with more money-saving tech tips.